Welcome to Heroes Have Wings, the podcast that gives a voice to the unsung heroes of Army aviation. I'm your host, Jason Santiago. For the Army aviators, crew chiefs, and flight medics who put it all on the line in the heat of battle, this is their opportunity to share untold stories of courage, sacrifice, and unbreakable will. From their beginnings to the battlefield, you hear about their hardships, the moments of doubt, and how they overcame impossible odds to save lives. These warriors didn't just fight for survival, they put others above themselves, embodying the true spirit of heroism and selfless service. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Heroes Have Wings. All right, Duane, so how was your 2010 deployment compared to the 3 previous deployments?
So this was RC South deployment. This was during the surge as well. Our MEDEVAC company had gone from 15 ship to a 30 ship. We got 12th cab, kind of absorbed them in because we were splitting up RC South to RC Southwest as well. So this deployment during the surge was probably the worst deployment I ever had compared to the other 3 prior to it besides Iraq. I would say Iraq was pretty nasty, but this one was this one took the cake. It was insane. I flew, oh my gosh, close to 500 hours. That's a lot for MEDEVAC for one person.
That is a lot.
That was a mix of PI, PC time. I also made PC during this time. I was fortunate enough to have some really good PCs like James Vanmeter. Him and I went inverted once, just south of Marja. That was insane because we lost our radios and GPS and everything. I mean, and both of us had the leans at the same time. He had the leans to the left, I had the leans to the right. And what felt like 5 minutes, was probably only about 45 seconds to a minute of loss of radios and navigation and in a dust storm at night. So it was pretty darn gnarly. And then everything came right back and we're like, oh, thank God. And then we broke out after we did the PAR at Dwyer and we were like, yeah, we're done for the night. Another incident like that happened when I moved up to Tarrant Out as well. Just a junior PC wanted me to take a Cat Charlie in the middle of the night. And I'm like, the weather's descending. I'm like, I can see it. I'm like, and they're like, you got to go. They're like, we need gun tapes down there and everything else. I'm like, this guy could wait till tomorrow. Yeah. As soon as we broke out of that bowl, we went in a bird right away. And I was like, told him, and I'm like, instantly, our chase aircraft was really, really close to us. Almost really close to midair on that one. Yep, we did our breakup and did the approach back in, and less than probably 15 minutes, the bowl went completely zero. That was one.
Was that at night, Duane?
Yeah, that was at nighttime. Trying to get out of the Tarrant Cow Bowl.
Not only do we have the stress of flying the aircraft, we have a lot of stress with the weather, enemy. We have a lot of stuff going on. I don't think a lot of people realize that. Going inadvertent is when you go into a non-visible environment, not planned.
Yeah.
And when that happens, it's probably one of the most dangerous times in an aviator's career. I mean, because you have to transition to instruments when you're not ready for that. There's a lot of stuff going on. And there's a reason why two pilots fly that aircraft. I've had the situation myself flying goggles. Luckily, when I was under goggles, I could still see through the clouds. So I still had visual sight of the ground, which was great.
Yep.
But every aviator, helicopter pilot, they know how scary inadvertent IMC is, especially when it's inadvertent because it's not planned.
Yep.
But when it happens fast. There's a lot of stuff going on. And then there are situations where we as PCs, we didn't feel comfortable launching our aircraft due to weather. but we had higher echelons, you know, pushing us to do it. And it was unfortunate sometimes, but it's happened to me. It's happened to Duane. I remember I had 5 minutes left of a mission day, duty day. Got a 9-line, Cat Alpha to go to Tagab. Haven't been there since 2008. Got a very junior crew. It's raining out. I mean, the shit was bad. But I picked the dude up, got to Bagram. I'm literally flying 10 feet off of mountain ridges.
Yeah.
All right. I get the guy to Kabul, come back. I did a lot of ass chewing when I got back, and there's more to the story. We're not only worried about the enemy, we're not only worried about the patient in the back, we still have to worry about our aircraft operating, being fully functional. We have to worry about our crew being competent. We have to worry about the weather. I tell everybody, weather has a vote. That's it. And two things that do not go together, I don't care who you are, your level of skill, is mountain and clouds. They do not go together. Okay? You want to have a humbling experience, you try to outfly your capabilities. You'll have a very humbling experience very quickly.
Absolutely.
I want to give them a visual just to see. It's essentially, imagine driving your car, torrential downpour, you can't even see the car ahead of you.
Yeah.
Good thing is you're on the ground, so you're not going to end up upside down.
Exactly.
In the sky, you don't have that option. So you have to rely off your instruments. Trust your instruments.
Yeah, that deployment was a wild one, and I felt like during that deployment, I landed in multiple hot LZs during that deployment. I even had one go through this number 2 side, hit the start bleed air, hit the transmission. In the hot LZ, as we were descending down into it, I was with one of the 12th cab guys at that time. As the PC, I was the PC. Like that, we had multiple ones of those, and we moved around quite a bit during that deployment too, from like Ramrod to Dwyer to Tarrant Cout. And the same thing up in Tarrant Cout. I mean, I landed in one hot LZ that basically I hid the aircraft basically down in a Y and kept the rotor blades about a foot above the wadi. So crew chief medic could get out. I was McElhatton as crew chief. I think that Roadshow was PI. That was a pretty wild one. I mean, it was just, that deployment was insane. And I just, that one right there was one of the ones I really didn't think I was going to make it back. And one of the ones, was you there during that time? Or was you down?
No, I wasn't there. Yeah, that's when I went down to be a SEER instructor.
Okay, so then Kandahar got attacked one night. I was coming out of the chow hall, not on duty. And when it got hit, because they lobbed some rockets in, and then they also tried to actually breach the wire. Now I'm coming out of the chow hall, heading back to the hooches, and one of those rounds came in and it landed about 50 yards from me, and it hit the 2 contractors that were walking out. And I just rolled over into the ditch, and I just waited for a second because I was like, here comes more, because I already know this drill. You know, I've had it so many times. But those dudes got smacked, and as soon as the last one came in, I jumped up and ran over. I grabbed one of the dudes. His arm was just like hanging on by skin at the elbow. Grabbed him. Believe the regiment guys were there, not 160th guys, Ranger guys were there in the barracks closest to me. And I grabbed him, ran him in, or helped pull him in there. And then we ran out and grabbed another dude, and the other guy that had basically all of his ass cheeks missing, and pulled him into that building too. And then we just sat in there. And then I ran over and grabbed a couple of the medics, like I think it was Sergeant Monavon that I got over from our hooches. And I'm like, we got 2 guys over here, injured contractors. So they come over and start working on those 2 dudes to get them stabilized. That was a wild night. Yeah, that deployment was, golly, insane.
What was your most memorable event or a situation where you had to display an act of heroism or adversity, and really, besides those 2 stories you just told me there, if it's a different one, if you could share with the audience?
I should write a book just about this deployment. We had a point of injury down in our Dwyer, RC Southwest, that one of the labs, the Marine labs, had hit an IED and it flipped over. And we landed. We got the first crew took the first few guys, and we were going to pick up the heroes. And we got one on board, and there was still one left. And
Heroes are soldiers or military, U.S. military personnel that will have been killed in combat. And as an aviator myself that has flown several heroes off the battlefield, is probably one of the most humbling experiences you'll probably ever encounter in your life as an aviator.
yeah,
It's very, very humbling, but it's an honor to be a part of that process to get them soldiers home.
and then our medic, I believe it was Sergeant Shields at the time, was him and I were on the radio, and he's like, I believe it was the driver that was in that lab. He's like, he goes, I'm going to have to cut this guy out because he's like, there's no way extracting him. And I'm like, sitting there thinking to myself, we're in an open area. We can really see around us. We do have some air support. I believe it was A-10s that are around circling. And I'm like, okay, I don't think we need to try to cut this guy out.
When you say cut out, what do you mean?
Basically, the way he was jammed into the vehicle, they were talking about using the jaws of life to basically dismember him. And I'm like, I don't think we really need to do that. You know, maybe we could come back and get him after they get him extracted. And I started looking over at the other vehicles, and I told Sergeant Shields, I was like, they've got cables. I was like, have them flip that vehicle. I'm like, and see if you can get him out after that. I was like, if you can't get him out then, I was like, then we'll do your idea. And he said, okay. And so they flipped the vehicle and they were able to extract him, and they got him out and without having to dismember him. And then we threw him back to Dwyer. And then the other one was another really memorable one after that was Sergeant Silk. Brandon Silk. I was up in Tarrant Cow on First Up when that happened, and when we heard about it, I was pretty much I was Redcon 2 already, blades spinning, ready to go, and we heard about it, and it's all of us. We knew no names were mentioned. We just knew that all of us, our heart's sake, we knew. So that one hit pretty hard because especially when he just left the MEDEVAC not too long ago. Also did deployment with us prior to that, the RC East one. Yeah, there's a lot of them there. And I don't know, the takeaway from that deployment, I don't know if I have a takeaway from that one.
How are you feeling coming back from after such a shitty deployment?
So, did what I normally did, which was just basically bottle it all up and throw it back in that Rolodex and put it off to the side.
And that's something I talked about in the pilot episode, how we just have to, we have a lot of shit balled up, and it's just, it comes rearing eventually.
Yeah.
It's happened to me. I'm pretty sure it's happened to you. We're going to talk about it, but I guess the level of commitment that we have to our country, to the Army, to our other soldiers, our fellow comrades, I mean, it's pretty significant. So I can completely relate when you say we just put it in the Rolodex and keep it somewhere where we just don't think about it.
And I like that you said that, the commitment that we put our own lives on the line like that, because that deployment, we, like, all of us, I would say every single one of us, medics, the crew chiefs, the PIs, the PCs, I think with the 110% in me, that deployment, because of the surge and how much we were flying, we were all more than willing. How many times I'd talk to my crew, we'd be sitting out at 1,500 feet, circling 10 miles out, listening to the radios, waiting to get a clearance to go in, and you hear the ground guys going, "Look, this guy's jacked up. This is the one that we took the round through." And they're like, "This guy's going to die if you guys don't come in here." And I talked to the crew and I'm like, "You guys feel safe going in?" And everyone, "Absolutely, let's go." And without a hesitation, like none. And it's like, you could hear it on the radios, you could see the impacts from the arty coming in on the area that we're going to be trying to land in. It's just, and all of us, without a doubt, just, let's go, and we did. And we did that multiple times over and over and over. And I worked with some of the best heroes, heroes to me, I could say, during that deployment. Every single one. Absolutely. That whole company, to include the 12 cab guys that joined us for that short time that we made a big 30 ship company.
Yeah, and I talked about that briefly too during the pilot, that we as we as PCs, we all faced that decision where we had to go against command decisions to go pick up soldiers that were in dire need, regardless of what we knew what the outcome was. All of our crew members were on board. I mean, I had my situation in 2008. Josh Powell was with me, and I will never forget that day. We all just got on the radio and said, "Hey, you guys feel comfortable with this?" They're like, "Yep." So we made the decision and we went. And it's like I said, I know you could relate to this. I never wanted to be that pilot that made a bad decision and someone passed away because of my inability to make a decision, a hard decision. So I was never worried about getting an ass chewing, none of that shit. It was whatever, man. I didn't give a fuck. I mean, I cared about making sure them soldiers, we all we cared about in the medevac, even not in medevac, but aviators, we cared about preserving life.
Absolutely.
That's it. We would do everything we had to do to make sure that young man or woman could get home. That's all we cared about. And if that meant putting our ass on the line a little bit, it's okay. We'll do it. That's what we get paid the big bucks for, right?
I believe that deployment at the end, I believe that we had quite a few distinguished flying crosses, to quite a few Air Medals of Valor, Bronze Stars. I believe every single one of our medics in 67 Juliets ended up with their combat medic badge. We had multiple cabs. I earned 2 Air Medal of Valors during that deployment. I'd already got another one prior for the 2008 deployment, and my cab, even though I had a combat infantry badge prior to that. So, yeah, I think that we all ended up with quite a few awards at the end of that, and a lot of hours. And I think a lot of us, we rolled it back in our heads as well too, because it's like, all right, what's our next fight? We're going again. We know it. So we ain't got time to, I would say it like this: during this time when we're doing 1 year on, 1 year off practically, or 9 months on, 1 year off, whatever it may be, you still, it's like, you got to throw it back there. You don't have the time because you're training for the next one. Because that next 9 months to 12 months at home is straight training. You already know you're on the next tour. So and that's what you do, is you just kind of roll it back. That's what I did at the end of that deployment, is rolled it back and just went, okay, well, what are we doing next?
We'll get probably like a month or two of downtime. And then right after that, we start training again. Before we deploy, we got to go to hats. So we're still supporting the infantry guys on support missions, because they have to get ready to deploy. So we're still doing shit. We got to stay up and ready, doing hoist, all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's not like we're going home to chill with the family for 12 months. We go home, chill them for maybe a month or two, and then we roll right back into it. So you guys get back home. 2012, you head right back to Afghanistan. This is where I come in as well. This is where I meet you. I kind of knew of you in 2008, but like I said, I personally requested the medevac when I was down at SEER. I was at maintenance test pilot school. I requested to come to the MEDEVAC. I hit Rick Knowlton at the time. I think he was the
SP.
yeah, the SP. I hit him up. He's like, "Yeah, Jay, we'll get you there." And I showed up, and 2012 we roll out. So 2012, we're in JBAD. How do you feel that deployment was in relation to your other four at the time?
So in between that deployment, I go through a divorce. I lost my dad as well, literally right at the
Damn.
day, right all at the same damn time. I'm kind of in fear for my career here because I'm just like, holy shit, from what my ex-wife tried to pull on me. I'm not going to go into detail about that stuff. No need. It worked out in my favor. So
Let me ask you this real quick, and I don't want no details either, but from a mental standpoint, how did that affect you? You just came back from the worst deployment of your life, right? You've lost some friends. We've had some losses during that deployment. Very tough. You come back, your dad passes away. Now you're smacked with a divorce. How did you keep your shit together? I need to know this because the audience needs to know this because there are people out there struggling that are going through stuff, and I just want them to hear from a guy like you that's so damn resilient.
when I was not flying, I drank.
Mm.
If I didn't have to fly or wasn't on a flight schedule, that's what I did. And so so in between those two, between that Kandahar deployment, going back to RC East, I felt like when I came home, I was still raising a freaking teenager, even while I was still deployed. I'll put it that way, to the person I was married to. Then the bullshit she pulled didn't work out in her favor. My dad passed away. It was just like, fuck. So what do I do? And what I normally do when stuff like that happens to me is I just bury it either one into my career as well. Like the mic model was coming around. I needed to get that transition. And so
Yep.
I was like, yo, I'm like, they'd already come up there to do the mic model transition. I didn't get into it because of all the stuff that was going on right during that time. And in the end, when it finally was done and over with a few months later, and I'm back from leave and I'm talking to Major Chung about it, and he's like, you ready to, I went to him and I'm ready to go, sir, let's go. And that's what I did. I buried myself right back into it, into my career because, you know, so
And that's another thing about the military. No matter how much shit we go through, there are people in that organization that genuinely care and love you. And we've always had that as a family. Like we've used our military family to lean on during tough times. And I knew there was always those individuals because you and I were together in JBAD and we kicked it tough.
yeah.
And I always knew that no matter what I'm going through, either at home, here in Afghanistan, whatever it is, I had other individuals that I could lean on and at least could relate and at least hold me up until I need to get to where I need to go.
Yes. So I came back from leave. I'd been out of the cockpit for a little bit. Talked to Major Chung, and he's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yep." I said, "Send me to Huntsville. Let's go." You know, I'm not. There's no need to sit here at the company. I can't fly. The only thing to do is go over to a sim. There's no need sitting here for another month, 2 months, try to figure out if my mental health's right or not. You know what I mean? That's the way I
Yeah.
felt. It was like more like,
Yeah.
no, let's just bury it and let's just move on. I got a career to get to. I got 20 years to hit. You know,
Yep.
this is a huge freaking bump in my career, and I'm just like, and I was like, nope, I got to get. This is what we got to do. So I was like, send me, and I went down to Huntsville, buried myself into the mic model, came back from it. Like they were like, what do you want to do? You want to go ahead and knock out your PC and AMC stuff? Let's go. Let's go. I mean, I did it that like within probably the first week of getting back, knocked it out. I'm the company TAC ops officer at this time too. I mean, so I was like, yeah, I'm like trying to learn as much as I can about this thing, the ins and outs of this, because it's all computerized aircraft. I mean, you go from an analog aircraft to highly sophisticated, and I'm like, yes, finally.
I, I felt the same way. I felt like it was Christmas when we got those mic models, man. I love those damn things.
Everybody was bitching. I love the Lehman out. I'm
Yeah,
like, shut up. I'm like, you know,
I was the same way, bro.
ah,
I was the same way. I was like, man, y'all need to shut up with that shit, man. We got an advanced aircraft here that just increase our survivability as aviators. Come on, man. You guys got to be shitting me right now.
the
Mhm.
situational awareness was the major thing. You didn't have to bury yourself in a freaking EDM, you know?
Correct.
So, yeah, and I just, listen to people bitch about it and stuff, and I just laughed. I'm like, I love this aircraft. So, like, I knocked out PCHC, and then all of a sudden I had 2 people I had to go take for training flights. I'm like, dude, I'm like, shit. So it was like, at first, getting back to the company and getting back in that first night, they're like, all right, you wanted it. Here it is. 5 hours first night. And I'm like, yeah. And so, yeah, I stayed on, I kept myself on the flight schedule quite a bit. Especially as company TAC ops guy, I was trying to learn more and more. Working with the other guys, so teaching them about it as well. And then we ramped up for our deployment for 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was 11, 12, 12, 13, something like that.
12, 13. Yeah, 12, 13. Because I got there in August 2011, like the end of August.
Yeah.
So I was only with you guys for maybe 8 months before we left out.
Yep. Yeah, but prior to that, burying myself back into the aircraft, I buried myself while I was on my leave, mental health stuff, basically take care of my dad's estate stuff. Basically buried myself in alcohol the whole damn time.
Yeah.
Came back, and then, it was a mix, burying myself into the aircraft and everything. And then when I wasn't flying, yeah, I was drinking heavily. And then just to kind of try to try to forget shit is what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, you still had the stipulation of, it was coming around, especially in the grunt world, that if you were having problems, that guys were starting to come out and say, there's something wrong with my head. And they weren't getting punished for it, they're actually getting the help for it. But in the aviation community, it was still almost still a stigma. It was
Huge stigma.
it was getting there, but it was still almost a stigma. And I'm going on my 5th deployment, which probably I should have just said, no, I probably need to sit back freaking one rotation. I already bitched at Branch about it. I wasn't getting anywhere there. Trying to PCS out of Campbell. It was just, I was like, damn, I'm just kind of like stuck on this one-on-one cycle. And I'm like, man, how many people could say they did 14 years at Fort Campbell? And at this time,
A lot.
I'm doing 12, I think, 11 or 12. And I'm just like, man, I can't get a break. So it's like, all right, just you bury it. So we head out that door. And the one thing I didn't expect on that deployment, I'll just say this, was I was not expecting to be in JBAD. But I understood why that I was there. To make our cockpit crews, what they needed to be, and with the experience that I had prior with our unit already. So I understood that, and I was fine with it. It was kind of like, man, because in the 2008 deployment, JBAD and all the outlining fobs, Shank and all of them, they got all the action stuff, and we got a few, and a lot of our stuff patient transfers. So I'm like, yes, I'm back at Bagram again. I'm like, patient transfer is what I'm thinking. And Major Chung's like, nah, I got to push you forward. I'm like, shit. So trying to run a company TAC ops program from a forward position, and you got somebody back there at the head shed that's basically your cover, and you're basically sending back to them, hey, this is what I need you to do, this, so forth, and helping them so we can get our daily briefs done, every day, so forth. And that was challenging at first, but after I was able to finally link all of us together for all of our sites, then we were good for all of us TAC ops officers. And it made I kind of streamlined it when I got to JBAD. It just took a bit to get there. But I was kind of worried about that one just being pushed forward like that, because I was like, man, everything's really at the head shed. And then when I finally figured out how to get access to everything there at JBAD to get around it, I was like, all right, I'm good.
And when we were in JBAD, what was the Cavs unit that we supported?
What was that Cav unit?
Can't remember. I know it was Colonel Rambo. That was our Lieutenant Colonel Rambo, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he was the squadron commander that we fell under while we were at JBAD.
Yeah,
I just don't remember. I don't remember the Cav unit though. What was your biggest takeaway? What was the biggest difference between 12, 13, and 10? We already know 10 was the epicenter of your deployment. So what was your most memorable moment in 12 and 13, and what'd you take away from that deployment besides you and I becoming good friends?
I kind of, when we got there, I started thinking of the 2008 deployment, and I'm like, these guys were like busy, a lot of POIs, stuff like that. And that's what I started thinking. I'm like, great, here we go again. I'm like, this is going to be a Kandahar deployment or RC South deployment. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, please don't be like this. And it wasn't. That deployment was probably, I would probably say, one of the more chill deployments that I had. We did a lot of training flights. There was some POIs. There was some sketchy flights, not very often. But one of the ones that I remembered was with Chris Cologne. We were, I can't remember what valley it was, but it was in the middle of the night. We're trying to get up into a valley to pick up a patient up there, and it was north of TK. We're pretty high altitudes. I want to say it was like close to 8,500, 9,000 foot, trying to get into this little fob. And I have one goggle that just one goggle, just one, just wants to keep going black on me every time we make the approach. And I'm like, what the fuck? Because he was a junior PI. So I was with him on the controls to help, do the landing and everything with him. And it was pretty dusty. And, the first time my goggle failed on the left side, I was like, go around, instant. So came back out, and then the goggle came back on, and I'm like, what the fuck? So we make another approach, same thing. And that same goggle does the same thing. So finally I was like, all right, we're just going to circle from there. I was like, give me another spare goggles. They hand me the other set, put them on, and everything's working fine. I'm like, all right, it was the goggles. So we start making our approach back in there. As soon as we touched down, like the dust and everything, I mean, the wheels were already like right there, and we were committed. And the left one failed again, and I'm like, just keep going down. And so we touch down, pick up the patient. I flip my goggles up for a minute, take them off, mess around with my battery packs. I'm like changing batteries. I'm like, what the hell is going on with this? And we're in, a valley that's 10,000, 11,000 feet on each side. We're down inside of this fob, and I'm like, it's red aluminum as well. I'm like, this is just stupid. I'm like, what are we doing out here? And my goggles are just all jacked up, and I'm like, can't figure it out. Put everything back on real quick to get the patient on, and I'm like, all right. I was like, I got one tube. I'm like, so that's it. And I'm like, so we're just gonna have to make the best of it on the way back. And so we climbed back out, and I let Chris fly home. And I said, you know what, as soon as we got up into the altitude in the valley, I was like, you know what, let's just go ahead and just climb on up to IMC altitudes instead.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just brought up on our maps basically the route for the red loom routes coming back out and I'm like, we're just going to maintain this with, since I'm down to 1-2. I'm like, and this is going to give me, it was starting to give me a headache and starting to mess up everything in my vision. So I was like, you know what? I was like, my goggles are coming off, guys. I said, they're going up. So I flipped my goggles up and he flew with his on, everybody else flew with theirs on. And I was basically sitting there looking at a blank black all out of my screen. And I'm just like, beautiful. And then finally and I'm like, yay.
Say that again?
I said, we finally saw the lights of J-Bat, and I was like, oh, thank God.
The red loom in Afghanistan is dark. I don't think people understand how dark it is in Afghanistan. I'm talking about your hand is in front of your face dark if there's no light around. And now imagine trying to fly in those conditions, and then we're doing dust landings, and all we have is green screens in front of our eyes that they will dust out, and you lose visual of the ground. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of stuff going on. So
yeah, that was,
you just have to pile that in with all the other factors that's just adding up as we move along.
so that deployment was pretty, I would say the deployment was pretty chill. We had a few good POIs, or I had a few good POIs, a few chase POIs that I was chasing as well. We had a lot of junior guys, PIs during that deployment, and we got a lot of good dust landings and high altitude training with those guys. And I thought that, for me, I thought that was like great for them because they were so junior. And with coming out of that RC South deployment, and the good thing was when I went to the Mike Monte course down in Huntsville, one of the guys was a retired 160th dude. Oh my gosh, man, he put that aircraft through its pace with me as well. He's like, this aircraft, check this out. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, right on the damn limits. And I'm like, damn. So, I did training like that with realistic training with them when we were there. Like, you're going to have heavy dust. You're going to have people shooting at you. And it was like, this deployment was almost like a fresher breath air. And it didn't happen as much, not nearly as much, besides that day that the Taliban tried to get in the wire.
December 2nd, that day was crazy as hell.
My patio and PTs, my body armor, my M4 sitting across from me, watching it all go on across the other side of the air.
Yeah.
Saw our major yelling, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I'm pretty sure the SF guys got this handled, but just in case, I'm going to shoot somebody if they come running across here.
That day was very odd. I'll never forget it, man. We get the morning mortar rounds, right?
Yep.
So we had the morning mortar rounds, and then we started getting small arms fire, and I was like, something ain't right.
Yeah.
So I jumped out of the bed, and you're in the room right next to me. I'm like, Duane, let's go. And I'm already out the B up by then. I run to the CP, and I'm like, what is going on? And everything started to unfold that day. So that was interesting.
It was a pretty wild day too.
I'll never forget that morning. I was at the maintenance. I was at the maintenance meeting. It was about 7:00 in the morning. I was by myself. And everybody, we pretty much do our own thing. So I'm just walking back by myself, and all of a sudden, shoom, 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 boom, 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 boom. I hit the ground. I get up. Like you in the wadi, I just waited for a few seconds. I'm by myself now. I get up. I haul ass. I get to remember our bunker outside of our B?
Yeah. Yep.
I get in there, and all you guys are just sitting there in your pajamas and like shorts and shit with everything on. Like, you're like, hey, nice you to show up, Mr. Santiago. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, what the fuck, man? But what was your biggest takeaway with that 2012-13 deployment?
My biggest takeaway, don't take food off another man's plate in the chow hall.
Go ahead, tell the story, Duane.
Oh my God, dude. I remember us sitting down. We're all just, we were just there not very long too. I think that we just arrived like just maybe a week prior, just starting to do our LAOs or whatever, lefty righty rides. We're still kind of relaxing, getting settled in. And we're all sitting there, got our food from chow hall, sitting there eating. And I remember you had that, I think it was like a cake or something like that. And I was like, you gonna eat that? And I just went bam with my fork. right in the center of it and took a big chunk out of it and ate it. The look on your face, I'll never forget.
I'm serious about that.
Because you looked like you were in a prison because you had your hands all around your tray like you were like, you've been to prison before. And I just went right dead center of it because it was like the last thing on your plate. And you looked at me and you were like, you just fucking did not. And I'm like, what? And you're like, you just ate off another grown man's plate. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, is he fucking with me or is he serious right now? And I'm like, I'm only fucking with him. And man,
Uh,
you got up and I was like, oh shit, he is pissed. And walked out. And I was like, oh yeah. And for like 3
shit.
days, you barely talked to me. I tried to apologize to you several times, and you're like, no, man, you ate off of a grown ass man's plate, man. I cannot fucking believe you did that.
Shit, that was a good memory, man. So we get back when did you get back? Did we get back together?
Nope.
I know.
I thought I was going to come home with you guys. I was actually kind of hoping I was going to. But Major Chunk said that he was going to keep me there for the rest of the time and come home with the rest of the head shed. I mean, obviously, I was the company TAC ops officer. And I was like, okay. And I was upset, but then I was like, it's the Army. I have to do this. That's what I'm here for. So I ended up staying I think we stayed for another 30 or 40 days is when we got home after you guys.
Yeah, I think I got home on I think it was like March 13th I got home. So I know you guys started rolling in after that.
Yep.
So what happened after that? What was Duane doing after that deployment?
Well, I met a good friend of mine. He's no longer with us. Jeff Kennedy. During that time frame, he was their company AMSO, and I was our company AMSO, Aviation Mission Survivability Officer, TAC Ops, whatever you want to call it. And when we did our RIP for that 2 weeks, stayed in contact still, we became really good friends quickly there. And then stayed in contact for several more months afterwards. And I told them, like, you need anything at all? I'm like, because they were just like us. They showed up to theater with a brand new mic model, just like us. We just showed up, brand new mic model, we're trying to get used to it. And so his biggest thing was, trying to learn how to load up the maps and the routes and all. So I'm like, if you have any problems, please contact me back in the States. I will go to my S2 vault and do what I can and hook you up, So we stayed in contact for a little bit. He finally got everything down perfectly good. Never talked to him really again after that. I didn't really think anything of it. Came back. We went over, did our, basically, I think it was 50th Med was still there. They were wanting the breakdown on the mic models as well. They just got them. They were getting ready to go out the door. I asked Branch at the time was wanting me to PCS. Oh yeah, you got the early retirement. I tried to get that. I couldn't get it. I was short on that one. So I was like, all right. Cause at that time I was like ready to get out of the military. And then finally I was like, all right, all I gotta do is make it now to my 20-year mark. So I was,
How was your mental health at this time?
I was just, after that deployment, I mean, I wanted a break. It was either give me a break or let me just go ahead and go back and let me finish out where I'm at, because at this time I'm pushing close to 18 years at Campbell. I think it was 17 years I'm 17 years from in the military now. And I told Branch, I'm like, can you just let me like stay here? I'm like, hell, 50th Med's getting ready to go back. Let me deploy with them. I was like, go back to Afghanistan. At this point, I'm single as well, not married. I'm just like, fuck it. Might as well just keep deploying,
Yeah.
So I asked Branch about that. Branch is like, there's no way. They're like, you got 5 deployments. They're like, there's no 2-star that's going to sign off on your dwell time. You literally have no dwell time whatsoever in the States. And I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, all right, now I'm getting my chance at a break of to settle down. So I'm like, where can I go? So I asked to go to, I believe the VIP unit in Japan. Instantly said no. I asked to go to frickin' Germany. Instantly said no. I asked to go to Italy in a non-flying position. Said no. Asked for Alaska. Why? Because I had no overseas tours. So everything that I had OCONUS was the Middle East, Afghanistan, Iraq.
Damn.
So I'm like, he's like, you can't even get Alaska or Hawaii. He's like, those are considered, OCONUS or overseas tours. I'm like, man, I'm like, that's crap. I'm like, I can't, I'm like, I've been in the military for 18 years now. And I'm like, and I can't get something overseas just to see something different. Is all I wanted. And he's like, nope. He's like, sorry, man. He's like, just ain't gonna happen. He's like, he's like, you need to choose. He goes, you want to go 10th Mountain? I'm like, hell no. I'm like, it's way too damn cold.
Yeah, 10th Mountain was that place everybody avoided.
Yeah. So then he's like, I mean, I've argued with going back with 50th Med and tried to stay there and just retire my 20-year because my kids were there in Nashville as it was. So unbeknownst to me, they were going to be moving to Oklahoma, literally right after I moved to Fort Riley, but that's just a little bit more in the future. And he said no. And
Is that when you went to Riley, or he made you stay at Campbell?
so he said basically 10th Mountain or Riley. And I said, all right. I said, I'll go to Riley. And at this time, because with what he saw on my DD, or not my DD24, we saw on my ORB and everything, he's like, man, he's like, we can't lose you. He's like, you're going to make W4. And I'm like, at this point, I'm just like, I'm kind of burnt out. It's either send me all in or I'm burnt out. It's one of the two. One's going to give. And so they didn't want to leave me at Campbell. He's like, so I'm going to send you to Riley. And I'm like, I said, I said, I need a break. I said, if you want me to stay in, I'm like, I need a freaking break, dude. I'm like, bad. So he's like, I'm going to send you to Riley. He goes, we have a G3 air position that's open there. He goes, non-flying position. I think it was FAC 4. And he goes, so you won't lose flight pay or anything else. Now, at the time, Riley still had their Alpha Pluses. So they didn't have mic models yet for their medevac either. Only one of the mic models was their Assault. So I'm like, all right. I'm like, cool. I'm like, so what does this entail? And he's like, you'll work with G3 Air, doing the policies with the aviation unit, cab and everything. I'm like, great. He goes, this will set you up. He goes, it's 2 years. He goes, you're obviously going to be boarded the year after that. He's like, so he goes, that'll put you just over your 20-year mark and you'll be boarded. He's like, and with that position, he goes, that's perfect. And he goes, and what I have for you is a follow-on. And the follow-on was going to be, after 3 years there, was going to go work because we have these positions in TAC Ops and AMSOs, is that we can go work in the Air Force guys, work with them. And kind of like in our AWACS and stuff like that. It's kind of like that bringing each other's assets together type thing. So I was like, okay, so I had a whole new drive. I was like, hell yeah. Now I'm ready to go past my 20-year mark. I'm ready to push to the 30-year mark. Now I start thinking future. I'm like, maybe I'll go for W5 and stick it out to the 30-year. I'm thinking that's, the huge 75% in that retirement pay. I'm starting to think future. And so I'm like, man, I'm going to get a good break. By the time I come back to the cockpit, I'll be about a mid-grade W4, perfect for battalion, brigade area, start getting flying again, hit that battalion brigade time. And, damn, now I'm being boarded for W5. Whether I make it or not, I got my 3 looks. Either way, I'm still retiring at 30 years. So is what I'm looking at. And so I get to G3 Air and, man, I am happy. Like, this is just like, this is gentlemen. Gentlemen. Like, I mean, PTs.
Now, when we say gentlemen, no PT,
PTs.
coming in at 9 o'clock,
Oh,
coming in.
9:30. PTs on your own. I mean, it was just lunches on your own. I mean, I'm working in division headquarters, and I'm like, this is freaking awesome. Got my own little cubicle. I got another W3 that sits, right behind me. He's a 58 dude. We got our major is a prior 160th guy, Black Hawk guy. I mean, yeah, life is good. And I mean,
How did you end up deploying with in Riley then?
So I'm 2 or 3 months into this.
3 months chilling, living a good life.
Chilling.
Fat, dumb, and happy. That's the way that's the phrase we used to say all the time.
Oh,
Fat, dumb, and happy.
absolutely. I am just ecstatic. I'm rewriting the whole division personal recovery SOP for the aviation because when I got there, when I looked at it, and I'm like, man, this thing's kind of jacked up. And he's like, the other W3 I was working with, he was like, yeah, he's like, I've been working on this thing forever. He's like, and I can't. And I'm like, good thing I brought my stuff from Campbell. So, we basically, him and I basically pulled out those pieces that we needed and revamped it all from basically a platoon level, TAC, Ops, or AMSO, how his PR training should be all the way up to this, how they should train all the way up to this, and then how all the way from platoon all the way up to brigade level, how they should run PR, things like that, personal recovery and stuff. We're finishing up writing all this, and then I got told a W4 walks in. His 58s are finally going away again. And he goes, I'm here to take your job. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah. He goes, you're a 60 guy. He's like, so the cab wants you. He's like, there's no need for a W3 sitting up here. Mid-grade, going on senior W3, being up here at division level. They're like, you need to be down at the battalion. And I'm like, are you? So here we go again. Somebody else blocking my career path again, making choices for me after I already made the choices with somebody higher than them to get this place. And I'm like, man, you want to talk about a kick in the fucking nuts, dude. I go down to the cab that day. I won't mention names. The CWAB that was at the time, him and I, he was HRC prior as well. Him and I had beef prior to that when I was trying to get out of Campbell several times, and he wouldn't let me get out of there. He was one.
And this, I just want to roll back real quick. So, as an enlisted soldier, had the same issue, trying to leave, people keeping you from leaving, even after you telling them, like, listen, I have to go. Like, this is not working for me. You're being as candid as possible. They're still ignoring you. Now we're talking about you're the 18th, 19th year of your career. You're still dealing with the same thing.
Yes. So literally the drive to make W4 and stay 30 was gone. Now,
in a blink of an eye.
Blink of an eye. So it was now it's just survive to 20. That's it.
Yeah.
Just get to the 20 mark and go. That's it. And so I tried to explain to him, this was, a career path that HRC set up, that with my input as well, that we feel this was the perfect for me from everything, all the deployments and everything else. This was something to kind of get me to relax. No, he felt it was better that because of my experience that I needed to be down in the cab. And I'm like, are you fucking shitting me? So when I say I had no drive to make PC, anything, like nothing. So they brought me down out of division, put me as the battalion liaison officer in 3-1. And man, I was miserable and happy all at the same time. I was happy because the command that I worked for was awesome. I mean, it was very similar to working up at division. PT was very on your own. Everybody came in around 9. We did everything, and I was the battalion liaison officer. So basically, all I did was basically run up to the hill, trying to find the infantry units that needed, flights and stuff to get training together for everything. And then when we'd give the missions down to the companies, and then the whole part of that planning cell as being a battalion liaison officer, and we go down and scrutinize their whole planning thing. And I think I was on ACO's MTP or something like that, or not ACO's MTP, ACO's flight, where I was supposed to be their ATP. And I think I was like pushing like 180 days and barely making minimums. And like, they're like, you want to make PC and AMC, like all the stuff that you're supposed to be. And I'm just like, nah. And then when I did my check ride that year, they were like, they tried to do PC, AMC, everything all at once, like without me knowing it or anything. And I was just like, yeah, we didn't make it off the ground. I boloed that bitch. That's how bad I got. I was just so,
And this is a good example of how leadership can destroy a good soldier, like crush morale.
I was just so frustrated that, I came from the infantry where I'd fought tooth and leg to get the schools that I wanted, to get where I wanted. I've surpassed a lot of my peers, and or surpassed a lot of the ones that were trying to hold me back. And, I'm like, that's why I always say, don't hold your soldiers back. If they're going to pass you, let them pass you. If they pass you, then to me, that is good leadership. You got them there. Be proud of that. And then it felt like almost the same thing a little bit when I first came to aviation. And then when I got that deployment under my belt, it was like, some people were like, hey, let him go. Like Major Chung was a big one. Like that guy was on my team the whole time with all the bullshit I went through. And he was just, and he let me be me. And I was very grateful. He didn't hold me back. He didn't do nothing. He's like, all right, if you feel like you need to do it, do it. But we talked about it. And there's some times that I probably should have slowed down a little bit, but I didn't. And sorry, it's that whole PTSD stuff. So I'm trying to figure out where you left off. So it's, and it was, what was I talking about?
You're talking about you were back at the cab.
Oh yeah, back in one.
You're about to take your check ride. About to take your check ride.
Yeah, I did my check ride. Boloed the shit out of that one. I went home. I laughed. Drank 12-pack beer. Just laughed. I'm like, I don't care.
Oh, you're laughing because that's your coping mechanism, right? When you're reaching out, and trust me, because I've experienced myself, when you're reaching out for help and you're not getting that help, when you're telling people, yo, I need a break, I'm at my capacity. The only reason, I'll be candid, the only reason I left Campbell to go to Rucker to be a SEER instructor, because there was a huge demand from HRC. That's the only reason. If it wasn't for that, I'd have been there too.
I would have been happy going there as a TAC ops instructor for 3 years just to get a break in and get back into the fight. So
how did you end up getting deployed then? And how was that deployment?
They after the whole fiasco with my check ride stuff, and they were like, you don't, I mean, they could see it. They pointed it out. They're like, you just don't have any drive. And I'm like, I don't. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm like, I don't. And then the MEDEVAC, Jeff Kennedy came in. The one I was telling you about that I met from 10th Mountain.
Yeah.
He came in, and I'm sitting in my office, and he comes walking around the corner, and I look up, and I'm like, holy shit. Like, I hadn't seen you since 2012. I've talked to you a few times, afterwards. We connected really good as friends there. And I'm like, he goes, I saw your name here. And he was like, man, I couldn't wait to get here. And I'm like, holy shit, dude. So I'm like, I know, this is a connection here, a better connection now. And I'm like, hell yeah. he's like, man, he's like, I like to duck hunt, and I'm like, dude, I freaking love hunting too. And, he sat down in the office for like that first day he was there, we sat down for like 2 hours. The Charlie company was getting their medevac, or was getting their mic models. They were doing their training at that time. So he came there, and also with the whole fiasco with my stuff at that point, they were like, hey, you want to go to the medevac? Become the attack ops officer again? I said, yep, send me the fuck back. I was like, because now I got somebody there that I really know. Plus also, um, I'm I'm back in that Mike model frame. I know the medevac side very well compared to the air assault side, because obviously never been air assault. Because that was a huge learning curve for me. I mean, yeah, you got all that stuff from fly school, but I mean, when you do medevac pretty much another 8 years after fly school, 9 years basically, you don't know anything about assault really, because everything's on the fly. Planning is right here. It's snap of a finger. So I was like, yep, I found a bit of new drive then. And I went back to the med. As soon as I showed up, they're like, hey, we got to knock out obviously your A part. And I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Instantly done that night. AMC, PC, everything. Like, and there's a huge difference from the cockpit that I tried, that I did to that night. And I was done. And back in the cockpit flying. I had a great group of attack ops officers as well. Also, I believe the company commander was, he was one of the PLs there in 2008. So I already knew him too, and I can't think of the name. I'm sorry.
So when did you guys deploy?
So they came down on orders. I want to say it was 16. Yeah, because
Now, what did you guys do in Afghanistan in 2016?
we were in RC East. So
back to Bagram?
yeah. So basically, when it wasn't going to be the full unit either. So basically, I was at that 20-year mark. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and continue, see what happens, see if I can make W4, and then that will decide if I decide to go past. I kind of had a new drive for that, push into the 30-year mark thing. And then they sent, I think it was 12 aircraft forward and 4 platoons. And so I told him, I was like, please, I'm like, I got 5 deployments under my belt. I'm like, don't send me. I'm like, I got it. I got, a lot of experience and stuff, but don't send me. I'm like, if you try, I will retire. Because I had the option to, I could run my retirement paperwork right then. There's nothing that could hold it back. So they said it would leave me on rear D, and I was going to work with G3 Air again and work with the aircraft that we had left and with the PCs and PIs and work on rooftop landings and set up the med mission stateside. Basically, I think the Army wanted to stop contracting it out and get it back to being ran by us. And so that was to work on it. My goal was to work on that while they were deployed for 9 months. And I want to say, I think it was within the first 30 days, 30 or 45 days. They came down and they're like, we got to push 3 more aircraft forward and we need 3 more crews to go forward. And Captain Fielder came and he's like, he goes, I know you said you retire. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, but we really need you. He's like, we don't really have a whole lot of experience like you. And I'm like, I know. I said, give me 24 hours. Let me sit on this. Went home. I talked to Heidi about it that night.
Is Heidi your new wife?
Yeah. Now, mind you, Heidi was my first wife too. So we are remarried.
Okay.
So she was went through the first 2 deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq when I was infantryman. She didn't go through the other ones. Well, she did because we had kids together, but we weren't married during the next 3. Now we're back together, but we're not married. She's living in Oklahoma. My kids are there in Oklahoma too. So it's like a 4-hour drive away. So Riley was kind of like a awesome place to be at for us. I talked to her on the phone about, she knows, and she knew how I felt about the military. She knows everything. She knows exactly how I feel about our country and how the military to me is. And she goes, you know what you got to do. She goes, just do it. She goes, you know what you got to do. Because I didn't feel right knowing that we had a pretty junior company. We had very hand select few that were senior aviators. And I was like, all right. And so I told Captain Field, I'm like, all right, send me forward. And so I went out, I think it was within a week, with the rest of what was left of our company. When we got there, I'm thinking again, I'm going to be at the head shed. And at this time, you don't have the influx anymore of, everything's kind of drawn down a lot now.
Yeah.
So it was kind of odd to me that we even brought another company or another platoon over. But then when you looked at the battle space, it was kind of like, okay, I saw why. Because when I showed up, I thought for sure that I'd stay at stay at Bagram and be at the head shed and as the company TAC ops officer. And they're like, no, we're going to push you down to Fob Dalkey. Now in the past, that was Fob Shank. Oh man, the stories and everything else. And I'm just like, are you shitting me? Oh my God, here we go again. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I knew it. I'm like, I should have fucking retired. And I'm like, this is my last deployment. And I had this just horrible sinking feeling before I left, while I was en route, and when I showed up, that this was it. I wasn't coming back.
Damn.
This was going to be the one. I don't know if I felt like I had a brush with death and I needed to keep that adrenaline going or not at that time.
Yeah.
But I felt like that's what was going to happen. And I just, especially when I found out that was going down to Shank or Dalkey, I'm like, fuck me. So we take off. I take off down there with 2 aircraft. After I got done doing LAOs real quick. Of course, that was a quick breeze, so I already knew everything was.
Yeah.
Go down there, and as we're coming in there at nighttime, I'm like, where the fuck is Fob Shank at? I'm like, what the hell? Because it was no longer Fob Shank. It was Fob Dalkey, and it was literally just an SF group there. The rest of it was all turned into A&A compound. It all handed over. So I'm sitting there thinking, oh, shit. I'm like, maybe this place is a little bit more secure and it doesn't get rocketed as much as what it used to in the past. Yeah, that was a lie. So we showed up that night and get our quick briefs and everything else, get settled in, and here I am living in a fucking bomb-proof 20-foot fucking container for 9 months. And I'm just like, well, I know one of these things could probably take a direct hit. And every time one came in, I just laid in that thing going, this is going to be it. This is the one. Here it is. I'm like.
Is that when you decided to retire?
That was it.
Let me ask you a tough question. Did you lose trust in the leadership and in the Army at that time? Because they promised you so many things and then they just did not deliver?
I didn't lose faith in leadership in all of them. I lost faith in leadership in certain ones. And that's what and I was like, man, I'm not blaming you for anything. It's just like you could have like let me just let me do it and see what the outcome would have been.
Yep.
But yeah, that deployment, I was just like, I got boarded that year for W4 as well. That was I'm like, 50% of me was like, make it. 50% of me was don't make it. You know, I was 50-50 on that one. We was in the middle of the deployment when the board results came out. And I'm sitting there like, you know, like I said, 50 part of me is like, don't make it. Part of me is like, make it. Colonel comes down, him and I talk, and he's like, you didn't make it. I was like, oh, thank God. Like, it was a relief almost.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, my path is chosen now again. It's time to go. So, finished up that deployment. I did a lot, same thing with the RC's deployment with you. I did a lot of heavy training with my guys there, that really, really heavy dust landing trainings, you know, with that mind, teaching them things, because my thing is that I always thought I got good training from my senior pilots, absolutely wonderful training from my senior pilots. And I wanted to continue carrying that on. And there's a lot of PCs that don't do that. They're just like, all right, let's go fly fucking here and go do this. You know, IFR, oh, well, I need to go do this. No, let's go do combat training. This is where the money is.
Yeah.
This is what you need downrange. And after that RC South deployment, I was very adamant about training to the limits of that aircraft, the heavy dust. That's the future. That is our future. And they have to, that's the next fighting force. And they got to have it. I mean, yeah, I'm on a recall, obviously, to age 56. A lot of us warrant officers are, commissioned officers are, that can be recalled. And it may have, may not, but that's your initial force right there. And they have to be able to do it.
Yep.
And that's why I try to make it as realistic as possible to them, even in a combat environment and non-combat environment.
So you retire. If you don't mind me asking, what happened to your friend?
So Jeff and I did a lot of hunting there, Campbell and stuff. I retired 2018. Well, so I did make the 4, didn't make W4.
You passed it up though?
Yep, I had signed a deck statement. I was 16 on the list. Literally, I was going to be promoted like the next month, but my retirement paperwork's there, and I was just done. I was like, I was being offered a bonus too, and I'm like, no, I can't. You guys promised this, and then in the end, I'm not getting it, you know? So it's like, I can't do it no more, you know? So I was like, part of me wanted to, and said, all right, you made 4, let's go. You can make 5, you know, possibly make 5. Let's do this, you know, go back to your original goal, 5 and 30. And then I was like, no, I just can't. And then because they were talking about they were going to be going to Poland. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be a great tour, but Jesus, man, I'm like, give me something different, you know, it was all I wanted. And then I'm like, all right, no. So I said no, I turned it down, signed my deck statement. Jeff and I we did a lot of hunting all the way up to the time I retired. He stayed in, he retired 2019. And he committed suicide this year in March.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I hate to say this. It's something that we're all impacted by, because we lost a crew chief a few years ago due to suicide. And unfortunately, it's a common thing, and it's because we don't deal with those demons that we deal with every day.
Yeah.
We just keep pushing them off. We marginalize. I think biggest thing we do is soldiers, military personnel, we marginalize our mental health, and it's because we've been told to.
Yeah.
Like, and it's something that, and this is the reason why I create this platform. I need guys like you, me, and a bunch of other people out there, aviation people, just to tell the world that, like, yo, it is okay to get help, man. Like, I'd rather have you call me at 3:00 in the morning to yell at me about some shit. Like, we could sit up all day and talk about it. But I think the most important thing, we just have to be aware of each other. Check in on each other once in a while. right?
Yeah, that was really unexpected, and it just that one hit really hard. And then there was another friend as well, Matt Sieber, 3 months, no, 6 months prior to that as well. And I'm like, I'll get to that. So I retire. I'm trying to, I'm trying to still fly. You know,
So you want to leave the army and go fly in the civilian world?
yeah, because that's when you first go to flight school. It's kind of like everybody's goal is like, hey, I want to be a pilot on the civilian side.
Yeah.
Yeah, get those hours in and stuff, and so I'm more than qualified for all the hours, and I'm like, I'm ready to do this. And Heidi, I told Heidi, I was like, I'm gonna take a 90-day break before I go back, and she's like, sure, you want to take 90? Why don't you take just a little bit more? And I'm like, nah, I think 90 is perfect. I'm trying to finish up all my VA stuff too, and I'm working with the psychologist guy. Gosh, he was looking at my stuff and he was like, he goes, none of this stuff bothers you. And he's looking at all my deployments, and he's looking at, I've got 9 air medals. I've got a CIB cab. I've got multiple Valorous awards. I mean, he's like 60 months and none of this stuff bothers you. And I'm sitting there going, nah, ain't none of this bother me. I'm blatantly lying to this dude.
Why you think you're lying to him?
Because I didn't think it was bothering me.
Mm. And at what point did you realize it was bothering you?
I knew it was bothering me the whole time. I just didn't want to face it.
Damn.
So I told him, I'm like, look, I'm trying to continue to fly. I'm like, and so, I can't have this huge PTSD rating on my record. I'm like, because then I'm going to have to jump through all kinds of shit through the FAA to try to continue to fly. And he's like, understandable. And he's like, he told me his biggest fear was that, he goes, a lot of guys, he goes, the traumatic stuff that you guys see and do, he goes, especially you in the medevac, he goes, that's a big change from infantry to medevac. He goes, and doing deployments in each one. And I said, it is a huge freaking change. I said, it's a huge switch.
You're going from, you essentially take life to now you're preserving life.
Yeah.
Two huge different aspects, man.
Absolutely.
It is huge difference.
And I told him, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I said, I think I'm fine. I said, I have some dreams here and there. And his biggest thing that he said his fear was that, he goes, a lot of guys that see this, have this type of stuff, he goes, they don't start bothering them until they get like really, really older. Like, 50s, 60s, that type. They've seen a lot of stuff, but they've held it down so long, and then it finally comes back. And he goes, that's what I'm afraid that he goes, that's what I'm afraid will happen to you. And that made sense to me because of my stepfather was, or my mom's ex-husband and stepfather. He was, Vietnam. And like I said, very abusive person. And that stuff didn't affect him until he got older, like from Vietnam. Like, I guess literally all the way for like 20 years, it didn't bother him, And so I was like, yeah, I said, that's fine. I said, I'll deal with it when it freaking starts to rear its head then. I'm just blatantly lying to the guy. So he's like, all right. And so he puts in there, seems to be okay, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, he does have few this, few that. I get my rating. It was fine. I took 90 days off, and then I started working on getting my flight physical done again, and getting my cert and stuff. And then applied for a position at a really good company and got it. Now, mind you, in between this, I still I've not started dealing with any type of my PTSD. I'm literally just drinking it down. I'm out of the Army. I'm drinking it down now, So I'm trying to get myself back into work to, get myself off of it, And I go to training there. I finally go back to the base, and life is good. But the thing that was getting me, I literally was there for 1 year and lost that job to my own dealings of not dealing with alcoholism and PTSD.
And I'm not a psychiatrist, but I'm pretty sure the alcoholism was due to the PTSD.
Absolutely. So it was just that 90 days I drank my ass off. Then I get back into work. I'm thinking, okay, I'm not gonna drink as much anymore, is what I'm thinking, because I'm back at work. So this job, I'm not gonna name names or anything like that for the companies, but it's a 7 days on, 7 days off. I mean, this is like 12 hours on, 12 hours off. This is like a phenomenal schedule. You know what I mean? Nights you're sleeping. It reminds me of being back in the MEDEVAC. I'm like, hell yeah. It's like I got my own room. I'm sleeping there at nighttime. Get a call, check the weather. The weather plan is a lot different. There is some pushing from the higher ups as well, especially from them. That's one of the things I did see I did not like for weather. And it's like, man, I mean, it's like you're always constantly watching your back because of weather calls. You're like, I don't feel comfortable with it. And then you got a medic and a nurse in the back. They're like, the weather looks great. And you're like, you're not the fucking pilot. Shut the fuck up. And it's like, and then they turn around and they tell somebody else, and that person comes bitching at you, and you're like, what? I mean, it was like a big change for me. And I was just like, what the fuck? And I felt like I wasn't protected as a pilot in command there, where I was in the Army by my command. If I made a decision, my command was either 100% with me or not. It's either or.
Yeah.
There was no in between. This was like an in between all the time questionable shit. And I'm just like, what the, like, and I pushed weather several times because of afraid of losing my job. Right. So this is a really nice job. I'm back in a 206, very not comfortable with that damn thing, but it is a glass cockpit and everything else. And I'm like, man, single engine stuff, just, man, you can only take so much weight. I mean, it's just like, damn, there's a lot of planning into it, which isn't too bad. And I'm like, man, this isn't a bad job, but the 7 days on, 7 days off, my 7 days off, I was drinking my ass off, like drinking my ass off.
At what point, what was your defining moment? Like, all right, let me go get some help and get my shit fixed.
About a year and a half after I lost the job.
Damn. So you lost the job, right? And then you went on for a year and a half with this behavior.
Yep.
Damn.
So my 7 days off, I was drinking, and then I started to do like tons of overtime to keep myself from trying to drink. Yeah, that wasn't working either because I wasn't sleeping. So I'd come home and I'm like, man, I can't sleep. And as soon as I get in the door, I mean, it'd be 8 o'clock in the morning coming off of a 12-hour shift at nighttime. I mean, you can work, I think it was like 12 days straight, and then you have to have a minimum of 2 days off. So I mean, I was like maxing myself out on overtime and everything. And when I was off, I was drinking myself to get to sleep because, you can't take a bunch of medications and stuff like that, FA frowns and all that stuff. And still not dealing with PT. That was my dealing with PTSD, trying to work and drink. And I obviously one's going to give,
So what happened that you realized you had, you realized you had a problem, but what happened that you said, all right, let me go get help? Because we all have that pivotal moment.
Um, I got diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis and psoriasis.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty shitty, like feeling body-wise, the pains I was having in my body for I had an adverse reaction to an injection, and it just like fucked up my body pretty good. And I went even more into drinking and just to kill the pain. And I'm not an angry drunk or anything like that. I just drink and smile and just watch TV and TikTok and reels and shit like that. The way I was, I didn't get up and go run around, do stupid shit, go drive my car, go run through the neighborhood naked. I didn't do stupid things like that. I just sat on the couch and just drink. And then I'd sit there and think of deployments and friends and stuff like that. And my body, I woke up one morning and I was looking, I keep a gun right there next to my bed, and I'm just looking at it, and I'm just like looking at it, and I'm looking at my hands and my feet and my body, and I'm just like, fuck, my body hurts so damn bad. I'm like, I can't take much more of this. I'm like, this pain, the mental, everything, because the pain was even making the mental worse. And I was like really, really eyeballing that gun. And I got up and I walked out to the kitchen, started drinking. It's like 9:00 in the morning. Started doing my daily routine, started drinking again. Heidi came home from work. By the end of that day, before she even came home, I had already started looking at places to go for rehab. And it was the thought that the only way I could get rid of everything was literally just suck starting that fucking gun right next to me. Mind you, this is before two of my friends has committed suicide too. So I'm like, I got up, like I said, I went and started drinking. I started looking on the internet for places to go to. Heidi come home from work that night or that afternoon, and she's like, look, it's either alcohol or me. And I'm like, I already have a place I want to go to. She's like, what? Like, she was like, holy shit. Like, you know?
What do you think? What do you think it was? Like, I don't know if you believe in God or religion, the universe, or what do you think it was? Because the same thing happened to me. I was just on my couch, and son said, "Get up, get your ass off the couch, go get help." And it's very vivid, and that's what I did, right, to turn my life around. Because we all know when you fall down that rabbit hole of darkness, man, that shit is like a fucking
Yeah.
shit swallows you up. But what do you think? What do you think it was? If there was nothing, then it's nothing. But was there anything like that, or were you just like,
I don't know. I don't recall having any dream that night prior or anything like that. But I just remember when I woke up, I just sat up and I looked at that damn thing, and I'm like, it's one of us is going to give. And I'm just like, one of us has got to do it.
damn,
And I'm just like, all right. It was almost like I felt like I was on two different personality levels.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like 50% of me is here, 50% of me is there. And I'm like they're trying to talk to each other and figure out how to come to a solution, with each other. And I'm like, I finally said, all right. And I put the actual gun away in the safe. And then that's when I started drinking. I started looking, and then Heidi came home and she told me, and I told her, I was like, I already been looking. She's like, oh, thank God. And, and
damn, that's powerful, man.
I asked if I could bring my Great Pyrenees with me because, I mean, I had that dog for a while now. I mean, he was like my buddy. Like, so they're like, yeah, absolutely. So they're like, you need to come on. I think it was that like 3 or 4 days later. Like, I mean, it was like quick. And I was like, no, I didn't want to waste any time. I was like, let's go. So, I showed up. Oh man, showed up. I tested positive for COVID. And I'm like, are you shitting me? So I couldn't get in. I broke down. I'm I was like, this isn't it then, you know? Maybe something's telling me this isn't it yet. Maybe just wait just a little bit longer, or, you know, I didn't know. And I just kind of, I was angry, pissed, upset. I mean, everything. And I just started drinking again because I was like, I drank all the way there to rehab. I mean, they don't want you to just, you know, show up cold turkey, you know, because they've got their regiment they want you to do to wean you down. And I was going to urgent care like almost every other day, getting a test done, trying to get in. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I did not feel sick whatsoever. Like I had no sniffles, nothing. Like, and I'm just like, and I started thinking maybe it's meant to be the other direction. Every male in my family has died young. Maybe it's my turn to do it too. Maybe I should have died. Then I started thinking maybe I was supposed to die in combat. Maybe, you know,
Take down.
I started thinking really bad thoughts of maybe I was meant to die young, and it was supposed to happen while I was overseas, and I didn't. And maybe this is me, something telling me that since you didn't do it there, this is where you're going to do it at. And it was dark. Um,
Many of us could relate with you, brother.
I wasn't planning on it. Like, I didn't have a date in mind. I didn't have nothing like that. But I finally, the third time I went to urgent care to get another test done, and I was like, okay, if I test positive again, I don't know what's going to happen. Because I'm like, I'm not going to get in. I'm going to have to wait longer. I'm like, and I don't want to wait anymore. And I tested negative. I called that morning to the rehab center. They're like, get your ass here now. So Heidi was at work, called her. She came and got me, and we took off. 6-hour drive. Checked in with my dog, got tested again, you know, obviously tested negative. And that's it. That is it.
I appreciate you sharing and being vulnerable, bro. There's a lot of people I can relate. There's a lot of people that can relate. What's the best advice that you would give a veteran our age, retired, struggling, drinking, doesn't want to get help? What's the best advice you would give that individual right now to save their life?
Don't wait. When you start to feel low, that's when you need to start working on it. There's nothing. It's a daily thing. You got to work on it daily, and
Every day.
you got to find the right group of people or right therapist, things like that. The right friends, maybe as well, because even some of them they're hurting too, and they're just not ready for it yet. And if you I'm going to say that if you have any thoughts of suicide, you need to start talking to somebody now then.
ASAP.
ASAP. Yeah, so it was quick for me to bounce back, you know, from drinking every day, you know, almost pretty much all waking hours till you went to sleep again, and then to not drinking. And like
How long you been sober?
over 2.5 years. No, yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Proud of you, man.
Thank you. So I think that normally you're there at the detox for about 2 weeks before you start going into, you transition over to the house and then you start doing classes and stuff like that. And I was not in the detox, but 7 days. Like my body bounced back like quick. Like if you all saw me before when I was getting ready to go to rehab, oh my God, dude, I did not look good. Like physically look good. Like I was heavy, bloated, skin color was, just off. I mean, I wasn't drunk,
Alcohol will kill you, man.
you know,
That shit will destroy your life.
it was taking a toll.
I want to tell you, I'm gonna give you your flowers at the end of the show because I do care about you a lot, and I want you to know that, all right? If there's one thing, what do you want Dwayne's legacy to be? Like, what do you want me and everybody that knows you? Because I already know what I think about you, and it's all good things, regardless of anything else. Because your demeanor was a caring demeanor, and you always want to always give your best. And some people can't understand that. And some people can't understand passion. And it's never your fault. It's their fault. This is their fault, not yours. The day I met you, I was like, this dude is passionate about what he does and he cares. So what's the legacy that you would like to leave for your children, your friends, your wife, your dog, just for us to remember you by?
That right there, that I'm very passionate and care about our leaders, that are in the military, our juniors. My daughter's in the military now, so she's a corporal now. So as an Apache mechanic, and I tell her all the time, I'm like, listen to your soldiers, listen to your NCOs, take advice from them. That's what I want to be remembered by, is that, regardless of whatever was in my way, I pushed it off to the side and went around that bitch, climbed over the top of it, whatever I had to do. If I had to frag that motherfucker out, I did. And I accomplished what I was going to do, even if it wasn't all of them, like the long terms, like W5, 30 years. I'm happy knowing that I retired at 22, being promotable to W4.
Yeah.
With all those deployments, all that combat time, now over 1,000 hours of freaking combat time for a medevac guy. And I know we couldn't bring them all home, but the satisfaction of knowing how many we did bring home to their loved ones, to their families, and that are still here today. That's what I want to be remembered by.
Damn.
That I thought more about them than myself. Everybody else, including my family. My whole career was them, The next step is, got to do this. The next step is this, because it's more money in my pocket. It's more stuff for my kids. It's more stuff for my family.
What would you tell younger Dwayne? If you had a chance to go back and tell, or if you're just looking at your son and young, what advice would you give that younger version of you, or one of your young one of your young children? What's the best advice you would give them?
Best advice I'd give them is take a break every once in a while. Do something for yourself. You need to reward yourself for the things that you've done. And you need to take a break. And sometimes that break may be just taking a day off, 2 days off, a week off, a mini vacation, whatever it may be. Just sit back, remember who you are, recage yourself, and fight forward again.
First off, I want, because I know you're huge on TikTok. I follow. You're funny as fuck. So put out your TikTok handle so people can follow you. All right. I want to, if you're doing any projects, put them out right now.
I don't
Anything you're doing.
I don't know how TikTok assigned me this one, but they assigned me Duane Taylor 6 for my handle. And I'm like, damn. And if you read the captions, on there, my bio, retired infantryman, medevac pilot, and I'm like, obviously 6 is call sign for the company commander. And it's like, man, nah, I wasn't a commander. So I don't know how that happened. And I'm just like, I, I pushed the limits a few times on some of the stuff I posted on there on political things, and I've never lost my account. So it's like, I try to keep the political stuff off as much as possible. I'm an apolitical person. I really find it un-American what people say about each other, regardless of whatever they think of left and right. That is just, you calling people names and stuff like that just because of political party, I believe is just the most un-American thing to me.
Just to add on, I think our country is divided more than ever.
Yeah.
And what angers me the most is when I see veterans getting tied into the hoopla.
Yeah.
Like, let me tell you guys something. When me and my friends, we went to go pick people up, it didn't matter what you look like, what your political stance was. And I think none of that stuff mattered. And I say that because I think a lot of Americans need to understand, for us to bounce back to where we really need to be and be a united country, we need to start really looking at things on all sides. People need to put down their damn opinions. And if you ever were in a combat situation, you would understand what I'm saying, because, hey, I get it, man. I don't care how you feel. I'll tell everybody, I don't give a shit what you believe, how you feel. Okay.
Absolutely.
What I will tell you is, I think we need to respect each other's opinions, and we need to go from there. And we shouldn't push other people's agenda on anybody that doesn't want it. That's what I will say.
I try to keep the political stuff off of there, and then my Instagram is Blackhawk Medevac. I was fortunate to get that one. I don't know how. I just decided to type that thing in and it was not taken. And I'm like, wow. So I've had that one for years. And the same thing.
So TikTok is Duane Taylor 6.
Yep. And then Blackhawk Medevac is for Instagram. And then I don't know really what my Facebook one is, because I don't really put a whole lot on Facebook anyway, but I don't put a whole lot on these. I'm trying to figure out really what I want to kind of do with those. And I'm trying to lean more towards the fishing and hunting stuff and keep the political crap off there. I would like to see more veterans in politics, especially combat veterans with the experience that you have, I have, etc. I'd really like to see these guys in politics more.
It's funny you say that, Duane, because I was telling my friends, I said, if I knew what I knew now, I would have went to law school and I'd have became a lawyer and I would have gotten into politics. And
Absolutely.
it's not because I have an agenda or anything. It's because I am a true American. I fought for our country on several occasions.
Yep.
And I know how important it is, the Constitution of our country, and those things. I know how important these things are. And I say this because when you go to countries and there's women still getting publicly stoned and
Oh
getting
yeah.
killed in public, and you see the quality of how their children are treated and all the crazy things in these other countries, it makes you realize how wonderful of a country we have. And trust me, we got our problems. I'm not saying that we don't, but shit, man, I'm telling you guys, if people seen the things we've seen, I think they may think a little bit differently. But
Especially when you've been a ground guy and you're embedded with the locals and you're embedded with we called them ATF back in 2002, anti-Taliban forces. When you're embedded with these people, I mean, you're working hand in hand with civilians and the local populace. You don't know exactly if they're enemy or not. Iraq, I mean, as a ground guy there, it's the same thing. I was embedded with a bunch of locals. We're working on building their border security, training 600 border guards, stuff like that. Yeah,
it's a humbling thing, man.
It is. It is.
Well, brother, I want to tell you, I really appreciate the time we spent together. I've never told you this, but I do hold you in high regards from the experiences we did have in our deployment in 2011-12. From the times we were carrying, you remember that day we were carrying all those people out of the helicopters?
Oh man, yeah.
That was an interesting day. So,
like I said, I think I might write a book one of these days from all the deployments because it's like I have so many stories and so many things.
That's what's next for me too, a book, man. But yeah, I want to tell you, man, I appreciate you taking the cake off my plate that day because you made me realize now that I look back at it, it's not a big deal, bro. And my love for you, I'd have gave you my whole damn plate full of food. That's how much I care about you, right? But when we're younger, we don't realize the importance of friendships. We don't realize the importance of relationships either. And I'm glad to call you my friend. And hell, I would go back to combat with you any day, even if they call us up today.
Me
I
too.
tell everybody they could call me up today. They're just I got some stipulations, right? I'm gonna be a grumpy dump warrant officer. Just let me fly, leave me alone. No PT, no OERs. I'm good, bro.
That's
I,
the same thing
I,
I say.
I don't want nothing else. I'm here to do my job and
We've
go
seen
home.
some of those guys that have been recalled back, and we're like, damn, we could be that one day. I mean, I got like 9 more years, I guess. So
Yes or no on this question? Would you do it all over again?
absolutely, I would.
And I would too. And I think that's what separates individuals like us from many Americans. We are willing to fight for this country. Okay. And to do the things to maintain our quality of life. And I think that's important for the audience to know. But like I said, I love you, brother. I appreciate spending this time with you. And don't be a stranger. You come to Nashville, we will link up and just shoot the shit and have fun. I don't drink anymore. I may drink lightly occasionally, but I would never put you in that situation. And I did drink a lot myself, and I knew I had to stop because it was killing my body and my mind. So I want to tell you, I'm proud of you. I truly am proud of you for everything you've done and who you are today. All right.
Thank you. I'm proud of you too. I really like that you're doing.
I appreciate that, man. And if you need anything from me, I don't give a shit. Like I said, 1, 2 o'clock, hit me up, bro. If you need me to come down there, you need to come up here, whatever. Heidi's here and she needs something, whatever it is, you let me tell you no. Don't ever assume, oh, Jason can't do that. Any closing remarks?
Just just so everybody else knows that listens to this that does know me. My phone number's still exactly the same. It ain't changed. I don't ever plan on getting rid of it. I've had that phone number since 2004, and it's going to stay that way.
All right. So if you have his number, you're his friend. Remember that. If not, hit him up on.
If you still have it in your phone and you haven't got a new one or transferred it over, it's still exactly the same.
It's funny because I was looking for Duane and I still had his old number. He was like, the number's the same, fucker. I was like, love it. But hey, check them out. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok especially. Funny shit on there. Follow him. Another American hero. He's a badass in my opinion. I love you, brother. Keep up the great work. Another episode of Heroes Have Wings. Thank you for tuning in to Heroes Have Wings, where we honor the extraordinary stories of grit, sacrifice, and resilience. Remember, every hero's journey starts with a single step, so take yours today. If you love this episode, like, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep pushing limits, breaking barriers, and living your truth. I'm your host, Jason Santiago, and this is Heroes Have Wings, where legends rise.